Hey, welcome back to the garage. This week we're working on the 911, putting some new inner and outer tie rods in. Follow along. So last time we put the new wheels and tires on this car. They look great, I'm really happy with them. I know they're not everyone's thing, but I think that they're very fitting and very iconic for 997s. So we've got the wheels and tires on. I still need to take it to the dealership to get the rest of the tire pressure monitors hooked up. Everything is working, it's just not showing on the cluster. I can't enable the cluster menu without going to the dealership. So I'm gonna take it there, and while it's there, we're gonna have it aligned. Since I've owned it, it's always kind of driven like a car that either has worn out shocks or not quite aligned right, or just some loose suspension. And last time I had the oil change at SLM, which is a local shop that specializes in Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche. They do Lamborghinis, they do Ferraris. They do kind of everything European. When they changed the oil, they noted that the front tie rod seemed loose. And so I've got the tie rods. We've got the outer section, which connects to the steering knuckle, the inner section that connects to the steering rack, the boots, and then there's a kind of just look like a rubber band, but a little inner seal that goes between the boot and the rack. We've also got a inner tie rod wrench, I guess you can call it. It's really just a big pipe that you can put a wrench on one end, and then it has these interchangeable crescent shaped bits that you can put on the larger side here, depending on the size of inner tie rods that you have. Everything else I'm hoping will be pretty standard equipment. I have every tool that I think I will need, so just a matter of pulling the wheels off and getting started. So I'm thankful for having a 4-post lift in the garage for most of my needs, which is just storing cars, general maintenance like changing oil, other fluids, transmission fluids, diff fluids. It's nice to be able to pull a car up and just do quick inspections underneath of them. It works great for everything except for suspension stuff, but it is still helpful, and let me just show you how. So as you can see, we're still off the ground some here. So I'll be able to work without having to be crouched down or sitting on the ground. I'm still up in the air. And I still have these full ramps that I can use to jack up the car. Now, you do have to be careful. You don't want the jack to be close to the edges. There is a cross piece that's a big beefy kind of crossbar that's really wide that you can put jack stands on. It is a little bit tricky getting it jacked up, but once we do, you can still do a lot of normal suspension work at a comfortable height. It just takes a little bit more time to get it set up. So I've got my floor jack up here. I just want to make sure that I'm not too close to the edges. The inside has plenty of room. The car is kind of off-centered towards me anyways. We just get it on there and we can jack it up. Obviously you still want parking brakes on. I try and only do one tire off the ground just to keep it from swaying or rolling. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is take off this nut, which is what holds the outer tie rod to the knuckle. It's really helpful using an impact because a lot of times it'll zip that nut right off. If you try and use hand tools, the ball inside might start spinning with the nut. There is a provision to put a Torx bit on the end and then use an open end wrench to get it off, but should be able to get it all in one shot with the impact. And now I'm gonna thread this on just a little bit here. I'm actually gonna use this ball joint tool. Honestly, forgot I had it. So we get the bottom jaws kind of around the base there. And then we just start clamping like this. the nut back off all the way. And there it is. All right, now we'll work on breaking these loose. This inner nut is a 21 millimeter. The outer tie rod seems to be about the same. It's kind of loose, and I don't have a second 21, so I'm using this 13/16. So I am just breaking this loose and gonna run it back just against the outer tie rod so that I can remove the outer tie rod, leave that nut in place, and then I'll be able to tell how far this was threaded on and be able to do a measurement when everything is removed here. There is the boot that covers that inner joint, and then way back in here, there is a clamp that we have to kind of spread apart to release, or we can try and cut it. The nut's off, this outer clamp is off, so it should break loose pretty easily, though it might need a little bit of prying. I have a replacement boot, so I'm not too concerned about saving this one. If you don't have a replacement, you'd want to be careful not to tear this. Get the inner seal out of the way, that rubber band looking piece. It's going to be hard to show what's going on in there, so I've got the new one out here. Basically, we've got to slide whatever size fits. It kind of varies, so this new piece is actually a different size than what the current piece is. But find the right one. It slides over the end like this, and then you'll slide the larger outside piece on until it engages in these slots. And then there's actually kind of a locking collar that will lock it in place. And that allows you to reach over the entire inner tie rod to get to that nut on the back. Because this is going straight to the steering rack, I kind of want to be careful not to hit it too hard with like the impact. So we're going to keep it to hand tools here. That broke it loose, and now we can just spin it out. Before I put anything new in there, I'm going to try and get this new seal in place. So I found the secret to kind of be get it started on one side and then loop around with a nice skinny round screwdriver and kind of help hold it in place as you get it around. You don't have to get it perfect the first try. As long as you can get it over that lip, you can go back around it again and help straighten everything out. I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads here. The original tie rod used 1 1/4 inches. This one's using 33.6. And then this gets torqued down to 55 foot-pounds. I'll slide the new boot on. One of the things I fought with for a while is getting this inside of the boot over the lip on the steering rack. What I ended up doing is just using this tool again and kind of pushing it till it's totally compressed, which let me get some good leverage, and it just slid right on. I did put a little bit of oil on the inside of this too to help it slip on, but we're good to go. Now, these clamps are always kind of interesting to work with. They have these little barbs on them, and they've got to lock into whatever hole gets them closest to the tightest position, so they can kind of move a few different notches here. And then you have pliers like this, where either you can come in from the top and grab them, or you can come from the side and grab them. But all they do is pull in the bottom section of this, which tightens the clamp, and it's on there. So they're kind of a pain to install and remove, but you know, they're pretty compact. So once they are done, there's no worm clamp in the way. They're pretty clean once installed. So now we got to get this on the inside of that boot. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm holding these up just to kind of compare, lining up where the threads bottom out at the top and seeing, I know that where the threads get cleaned, that's where the nut was before. So kind of just holding things up, getting a rough idea, comparing a new one to an old one. They're actually pretty identical. So I'm gonna do just a quick measurement. It seems like everything is the same to the start of the threads. And I'm just gonna measure basically from the start of the threads to the end to see if that's the same, and then measure if I need to subtract or add, measure from here on up to kind of know where the nut, again, should be according to the original. Now, the nut that was on there is thicker than the new one, so I'll have to take that into account as well. We'll also need to take into account the length of these, so there's a few things going on, but I'm just kind of trying to get a rough idea going right now. Now that that nut's in place, I'm also just going to do kind of a quick comparison of these two guys, just kind of centering the top two with each other and seeing about where they land on the bottom. The new one is maybe just, they're virtually the same. Again, we're just trying to get it ballparked for the sake of being able to drive to get it in alignment. They're extremely close. And again, when you're replacing parts, everything can be a little bit different. So the inner tie rod nut was a little bit different size. This new nut holding on the outer tie rod is a little bit different size. Now I've just got to tighten that inner jam nut against the outer tie rod, and this side is done. We'll put the wheel on. We can go to the other side. There we go. We got this side together. Off camera, I did the other side. The other side I got done in about a half an hour. So once you do one side, the next one goes pretty quick. I will say the driver's side seems to have a little bit more room around the steering rack, so it's a little bit easier when you're trying to get the boot and the clamp and all that in place. Might be a good side to start on. One tip that I did have is trying to get the boot on. So this is the old one, but trying to get this inside over the steering rack was a little bit challenging. So what I did is I turned the steering wheel so that this is compressed all of the way. And then I took the inner tie rod tool and I actually just pushed it over the inner tie rod until it was totally collapsing and applying force on this inner surface. You do need to make sure that you have the steering wheel turned so that this is as collapsed as it can be. You don't have to go full lock, but you want to go pretty far. And then once you're done, just remember to pull this back out. There's a little indent that this outside surface lines up with. The first side took me probably an hour or so, but was kind of learning how to work with the boot. There's just a few things that I was messing around with. I did end up ruining one of the clamps that goes on the inside here. It ended up getting kind of cockeyed and ended up clamping down in the bellows kind of area off of the surface that it's supposed to clamp on. I tried straightening it back out, but it just ended up breaking on me after it bent so many times. I did end up taking the original one, which wasn't too mangled when I took it off, and was able to kind of uncrimp and get it on there and crimp it back down without breaking. So got lucky that time. Everything else went pretty smooth though. Later this week, I'll be taking this in for an alignment. We'll get the rest of the tire pressure monitoring system set up, just activating the menu in the cluster. And then later this weekend, but you're not gonna see it on the next video, I'll be working on the Volvo. So I've got to finish putting the intake and the exhaust on, getting the rocker assembly back in place, priming the oil pump to make sure that oil is circulating, put the valve cover on, reconnect all the spark plugs and the ignition coils, set timing, and then it should be ready to start. It's been a battle with various little coolant leaks, but we got them all sorted out now. If you haven't been following along on my 73 Volvo 142 with my high compression Volvo B20 motor, go check out my other videos. It's 10.5:1. It's running the individual throttle bodies, link ECU. It should be pretty fun when it's all done and running. Thanks for tuning in and following along. Please like and subscribe these videos. It helps me out a lot. Leaving comments helps out a lot as well. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.